What's going on, y'all? Episode 19, Let's Be Real podcast, man. We got a good one for you as always. We're going to touch on, obviously, the Thursday night game. Definitely touch on some of the big games coming up this weekend. Got some headlines, some major news. Going to touch on the NBA some, man. And as always, on our second podcast episode of the week, we're going to finish it up with the top five and then the watch of the week. And so, man, as always, you know how we started. Got the red wine. This is actually one y'all have seen me drink before. I've already talked about it some, but it's actually Olema. Dang, that lighting. But Olema is a Cabernet from Sonoma. I've drank it before. This one I already had open, so trying to finish this one out before it kind of starts dying in the fridge. But great Cabernet, man. Definitely bold, definitely dry. Because it's from Sonoma, not quite as like bold as you would think like a Napa one is, but still pretty bold. And you're gonna get good fruit flavor, definitely dark fruits, blackberry, and then get a little bit like oak at the end. So if you like Cabernets, this has actually become one of my favorites. So definitely go ahead check it out. I'll put the info as always in the description, but we're gonna start off with that. And with that, we're going to get to it, y'all. Thursday night football, Lions Packers. And we had a game. And so, man, lots to unpack here, but you know what we're going to start with. This the kind of thing. I think every show, every podcast that does football, everybody probably started with this when we talk about the Lions and Packers. And that's the fourth down call, man. So, look, you got a lot of people who on Friday morning. Just so y'all know, I'm filming this Saturday because I was actually at a hockey game last night when I was supposed to be filming this. So Friday morning, a lot of people, doing the Monday morning quarterback of, oh, it was a great decision. I love the decision to go for it on fourth, and I agree with some of the calls they made earlier in the game on fourth down. Fourth down from the 2 yard line. I love that decision. I love that call. Analytics would say that that's the right call to make, and there's clear upside for it, right? You kick a field goal there, you get the three. You don't kick a field goal and you go for it, you make it. It's a 4 point swing in your favor. Or if you miss it, you at least have your defense have them pinned down on the two. So I can see the benefit there. When we're talking about this last play of the game, man, look, and I don't know what y'all thought about it, but as they lined up, I'm thinking, okay, maybe try to draw them off sides. But I'm thinking there's no way they're going to run this play because they got a good kicker. It's indoors, so you don't got to worry about conditions. And to me, there's no real upside outside of the fact of you don't give Green Bay a chance at the ball, which I mean, great, but you're what 6 yards closer from what they got. Realistically, you look in that situation, you pick up the first down just barely or so. You're really only getting 2 yards closer, but the downside is you give them the ball with 48 seconds and a chance to win the game. So your downside is you lose if you don't make that play. And they had just stopped you to play before. Whereas your upside really is only, oh, we get another chance. We get a kick the field goal a few yards closer and they don't get the ball. Again, I think you kick it there because if you kick it and on that fourth down, the worst possible outcome you get, I mean, outside of a freak play, but the worst possible outcome you get is a tie game and you go play in OT. And if you're the better team and you're at home, that's typically a spot that you're okay with. So to me, what that really signaled from Dan Campbell and what I've been saying is my biggest fear with the Lions team, especially with now these injuries they're having, is he doesn't trust that defense. And I don't blame him because, like I said, I haven't trusted the defense all year. Ever since Hutch went out, I thought it was going to be a serious problem for him. But now you have the head coach saying it. And so, again, I don't really see the upside, especially when you lose that game, you possibly lose out on your division. Now you're looking at a 5 seed. We talked about why this win was so important for the Lions on the last episode. And so to me, it's just very minimal upside with that. And I mean, you even saw it on the handoff. Freak things happen. Jared Goff gets feet tangled up coming out. That could have been disastrous. And so I just don't see the benefit of taking that high of a risk to basically say, hey, we're going to kick this field goal and we're either going to win, lose right here, as opposed to kick the field goal on 4th down and now you kick it off to them. They still got to go another, 40 yards to even have a chance to tie it. And it's just, again, I get that that's Dan Campbell's brand. I get that, they're leaning into it and, by all means do it. But we saw what happened last year when they leaned into it and it didn't go their way, in the playoffs. And it cost them that playoff game, arguably. And so, after that playoff loss, Dan Campbell talked about it. He's like, oh, you know what? I need to be better in these situations. But now we're seeing the same thing again. And so could I see this absolutely killing them and losing them a playoff game? Absolutely. Could I see it possibly winning them a playoff game? Sure. But I think a lot of this is just it's crazy because a lot of what Dan Campbell is doing is the exact same thing we saw Brandon Staley doing when he was early in his career with the Chargers as the head coach. And people were killing him for it when it didn't work. Just like people would be killing Dan Campbell if it didn't work. So, again, we've seen this before from Dan Campbell and the Lions. Bad 4th down calls, and they're not always going to go your way. They have been, and so we'll see what happens in the playoffs. But, again, to me, it says a lot more about the lack of trust in the defense, which I get the Packers have been going, but lack of trust in the defense and then just I don't even want to say it's situational unawareness because they know what they're doing and that's their brand. But again, we've seen it kill them before, and I it would not shock me to see it kill them again in the playoffs. And then again, what are the conversations moving forward with that as far as is Dan Campbell the coach to get them over the hump to the Super Bowl? And so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think again, a lot of the 4th down calls I typically lean more towards being aggressive, especially in those sub 5-10 yard line in your own red zone or in their red zone. And so, but again, you gotta weigh benefits against cost, and the benefit in that situation just did not outweigh the possible negative that could come from it, in my opinion. But look, man, the Lions look, and shout out to them. They've, obviously get the win, come out, and look, they look good. They remind me a lot of how they're set up as far as just how almost like how the Niners used to be set up these last 5 years, right? Where it's like you got a guy at quarterback, and I think Goff, when we look at the quarterbacks the Niners have had and Jared Goff, I would say he's the best out of all the possibilities between Purdy, Garoppolo. But you got this amazing offensive line with arguably, I wouldn't even say arguably, but this generational talent on your O line. You got weapons as far as Amon-Ra, the 2 running backs, a defense where you got a legitimate, big time pass rusher. And so to me, they seem like a team who's kind of going to be in that Niners area for the next, 4 or 5 years, where always kind of in the mix, probably going to make, in the next this year, in the next 4 years, maybe make 3 or 4 NFC championship games. But in the same way, we've seen Kyle Shanahan kind of take some bullets over these last few years because, not being able to get over the hump. I think Shanahan's value to the Niners schematically so much far outshines what Dan Campbell brings to the Lions. And I get it. Look, Dan Campbell, he is great as far as a culture setter, um, kind of bringing Detroit and making the Lions really feel like Detroit. And so, props for that. And we've seen a ton of coaches in the history do that. They come in, they set these great cultures, and you kind of get them to, knocking on the door repeatedly. But those are the guys we also typically see bumped out for a guy like a Shanahan, where it's like, okay, now we need a guy who can take us over the top. And so that's my fear with the Lions is they remind me a lot of the Niners. And I think that their outcomes each year kind of be a lot like the Niners. Like they might make a Super Bowl, but I don't see them winning one. Make some NFC championship games, probably win one or two of those, lose some of them. And then I think in about a few years, and unless they can get over that hump and win the Super Bowl, I think that's where it's really going to start coming down to what value you get from your head coaching position in Dan Campbell versus like one of these great offensive minds and what they could do with that talent. And as far as from the other side, man, the Packers, look, again, I wasn't a big believer in them, but I take nothing away from them this game. Both teams dealing with injuries. Their Packers down their top corner, and so that hurts obviously when you're talking about trying to stop a Lions offense that's rolling. And I think Jordan Love didn't really play great, but made a couple. Again, we talk about it every week. Made a couple throws where you're just like, wow, what a throw. And so I think with LaFleur, Jordan Love, especially if he can start playing a better brand of football more consistently, Josh Jacobs running like a madman, they're set up well. And so I think whereas everybody last year said, oh, the Packers next year, I actually think next year for the Packers is probably going to be that breakout year where we see them really being a legitimate contender. I think everyone's probably a year early on that. But look, Jordan Love obviously has the talent, needs to kind of cut down with the silly throws. But with LaFleur, those weapons, the defense have been playing better. I think their next year could be legitimate, like contenders in the NFC. The only problem is I think there's a few teams that are going to be like that next year as well. And so, look, we're going to stay NFC. We'll even stay kind of NFC North, but we're going to start touching on the games that we got coming this week. Big games coming. I'm really only going to touch on three of them. I probably could have squeezed in a fourth, but I think there's three games that we really need to watch for that are really big as far as watches this week that have serious implications. And the one I'm going to leave out, I'll let y'all know, it's going to be the Seahawks and Cardinals. I think obviously that's a big game in as far as, winner of that is back on top of the NFC West. And so it definitely has huge playoff implications, but I just don't think there's really much there to talk about. Like we could talk about, like we do every week, Seahawks and going to go as Geno goes, Cardinals going to go as Kyler goes. I don't think either team, I think, like I said, either last episode or the episode before, I don't think either team has real legitimate chances of making noise in the playoffs. So, again, I'm not going to touch on that one too much. I guess I just did a little bit, but that's the one I'm going to leave out. So, just so everybody know. But we're going to start with Falcons and Vikings. So, look, we got Kirk Cousins' homecoming. Vikings, obviously, still in that running for trying to get, first, second place in the division and in the conference and try to beat out the Lions in the division. And so we're going to start Falcon side, man, with Kirk Cousins. Obviously, he's got that homecoming. Tough game for him last week against the Chargers. 4 picks and just didn't look good. Looking more like an aged quarterback coming off an Achilles. And look, I had the Falcons. I went in the division. I thought with Kirk Cousins there, I thought he was going to look better than this with those weapons. And it just, they looked good for a little while, but coming down the stretch hasn't been the case. They've been looking a little rough. And unfortunately, I think Kirk Cousins. Look, I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to get booed by the crowd. I don't think they should. My guess would be that he gets a great ovation from the Vikings. Had some great memories there, left on good terms. But I think they're going to spoil this homecoming for him. I think that Brian Flores defense. Now, granted, Kirk Cousins, he's seen that defense in practice, those players in practice for the last however many years. But I just think while I don't think the scheming from Flores is really going to trick him too much, I just think that that defense is just going to be able to beat the offense. And so obviously Flores loves blitzing. Kirk Cousins, who was already not mobile, looking less mobile than ever, and just doesn't look like he's getting too much on the ball anyways in that throwing. So again, I can't see the Falcons really winning this game at all, almost. And that's where I think we saw a lot of people kind of calling for Penix after last game. I think this is going to be the game where, and I also think it kind of has a little bit to do with what Tampa Bay does. Because if Tampa Bay loses, do you maybe leave Kirk out there just to see, keep the vet in, get to the playoffs, have somebody who's proven get there? But again, I think if this game goes the way I think it's going to go, my guess would be Kirk Cousins. It might be Michael Penix time, which is tough because obviously the Falcons weren't thinking that they were going to need to use Michael Penix this year. But if Kirk Cousins looks anything like he did last week, I think the only way to kind of save your season if you're the Falcons is to get Penix in there. Now, bright spot is Penix is an older QB as far as from a rookie standpoint. So, kind of assume that he would come in there almost like a Bo Nix and be able to kind of pick it up pretty quickly. Only problem is, they don't have a Sean Payton over there scheming it up. So I think depending on kind of how this goes for Kirk, and how the Tampa Bay game goes, I could see this possibly being Kirk's last game. And look, even if it means, you throw Penix in there, kind of see if you can find something. If you got to go back to Kirk, you can always do that. We've seen that happen this year with young quarterbacks being benched for vets and getting their starting roles back. And so I think the case with that is always like, oh, well, mentally, what does it do to the rookie? I think it's been shown kind of this year that if your quarterback can't handle that, then he's probably not your quarterback anyways. If he can't handle being sat down, look, we saw it with Bryce Young, and Bryce Young has come out and played well. So I think if your quarterback can't be resilient enough to be able to get time, get sat, get put back in, and be able to perform, then you probably should be looking for another quarterback anyways. And on the other side, man, look, Vikings, like we said, need a win. They're still very much in line for the 1 seed in the conference, 2 seed in the conference, and 1 seed in the division. And so this game is big for them because right now they need to keep pace with the Lions. I think the Lions probably have another loss on their schedule. I mean, look, they got the Bills next week. And so that could be a loss for them. And so I think if you're the Vikings, that sets you up because they meet one more time where, you may have a chance to right here at the end of the year steal the division from the Lions. And then, again, playing at home through the playoffs, a lot better chance of winning than having to go on the road 3 rounds and trying to make the Super Bowl. So I think, the Falcons defense has been bad, so I can't see that being too big of an issue with the one kind of spot where I think you can expose the Vikings, which is their quarterback, force them into bad mistakes. I don't think the Falcons really have the defense to do that. And so, look, I think Darnold goes out. I think he puts up some good numbers, and I think the Vikings probably run away with this one. And look, we're going to move on. We just talked about it with Bills Lions. So we're going to start. Next game is Bills Rams. So this one's kind of interesting because you got the Bills where So they have the 49ers last week, Rams this week, and then looking ahead to the Lions next week. And so to me, this is, again, I'm sure a lot of people had the exact same thought. My initial thought with this was, oh, this is possibly a letdown spot for the Bills. You know, you have a big win, you have to travel cross country, play the Rams, and you got the Lions next week. The only thing is, I'm like, when I look at this, is the Bills have a lot to play for still. Like, they can't afford to drop a game. And I think they know that. You know, they're trying to keep pace. They still have a chance at the 1 seed. They hold the tiebreaker against Kansas City. So, I mean, that 1 seed and a bye is huge. So it's hard for me to think that the Bills would kind of fall in like a look ahead spot and have like a letdown spot because they're like, oh, well, we got the Lions next week. The Bills are at a point right now where they can't afford that. I think they're going to be game planning just as heavy for the Rams as they're going to be for the Lions. And so I think, again, I'm hoping the Rams win because from the Rams' point of view, look, they basically, if they don't win this game, I mean, they're not mathematically eliminated, but it's hard to see a world where they get in. And I think the Rams are really the only team in that NFC West that if they get in, can win a game or two. And so I'm hoping for them to win. For that specific reason is just the playoffs to me are a lot more interesting with the Rams in it than either the Seahawks or the Cardinals. And the Rams still have games against the Seahawks and Cardinals. And so that NFC West, again, I know we talked about it, touched on it a little bit, but that division is so clumped up right now that the Rams get this win. They're right there sitting on top of the division with games against the two teams that are right there with them. I think this is a big spot for them. And look, the Bills' defense has been good, but that Rams offense, when they're fully healthy, and you got Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams all playing, they put up numbers. That is a prolific offense when it's healthy. And then the Rams defense, look, great young defense. They can get after the quarterback. So I think the spread is 3 on it, but I think this is going to be a really good game. I think the Rams could squeak it out. And that's what I'm hoping for. But I know a lot of people are talking about like that Bills letdown. I just don't see it not this week, not with so much riding for the Bills. Because if they lose, they effectively, I mean, you're done as far as not mathematically, but it's gonna be a hard to see a path to get to the 1 seed and the Chiefs losing enough for you to get it. So again, big game for both teams. I think probably, and it's weird to say because the Rams, their playoff lives are basically on it. I think it's a bigger game for the Bills to win, just like I said, because that 1 seed with the bye is going to be so big. It's going to be so big, especially in this year's playoffs, where that AFC playoff picture is going to be tough. So I think bigger game for the Bills, but obviously must win for both teams. So I think we're in for a good one on that one. And then lastly, we just touched on them, man. Chiefs and Chargers. Last game we're going over this week. Another big game. I mean, again, at this point of the year, it's playoff games, man. And so, obviously, you had the Chargers and Chiefs played earlier in the year. Chargers got out to a 10-point lead to start that game. We all know what the Chiefs do when they're down 10. They win at like 68% clip or something like that, which is insane. But I think the difference this time is, man, I just don't think the Chargers got the weapons to make this a game. J.K. Dobbins is going to be out. Ladd McConkey's questionable. And even if he does play, him being a little bit limited, McDuffie is probably one of the best corners and probably the best slot corner in the NFL. And so that's just, I don't see – Ladd McConkey's kind of been the key for that Chargers offense outside of the running game. And so I just can't see him really being a big factor with McDuffie on him and being limited all week. And so, yeah, Chargers, I mean, I think this is just one of those games where it's just, war of attrition, and their big playmakers are more injured than the Chiefs' big playmakers. And from the Chiefs side of the ball, man, look, Patrick Mahomes has been playing really well these last 5 weeks. Basically, ever since DeAndre Hopkins has come in, turnovers have gone down, touchdowns, passer rating have gone up, yards per game have gone up. And so I know people see kind of the points per game or how they're winning close games and think, oh, the offense has this issue. I think a lot like we talked about it before. Whereas like I like Dan Campbell's approach on fourth down inside their own 5 yard line. The Chiefs are the opposite. And it's actually funny because when you look at it, the Chiefs, Bills, and Niners are all teams who obviously we all see as contenders, and then Chiefs obviously back-to-back champs. But over these last 4 years, 5 years, they're the most conservative teams when it comes to the red zone. I think the Chiefs this year have kicked more field goals inside the 5 yard line than any other team. And to me, with somebody like a Patrick Mahomes, or in the Bills' case, with a Josh Allen, I'd like to see them be more aggressive in those areas. But from the Chiefs' point of view, they've had this defense that's been great. So you can afford settling for 3 in those red zones. And I think that's where you see that points per game come down a little bit more, where you see teams like the Lions, who are a little bit more aggressive, going for it, getting more points that the Chiefs aren't getting. So I think obviously if it comes down to that, we've seen them make big time calls in the red zone. I just think that in the regular season, they're more so just let's get through it. Kind of this one came to me a few days ago, but they kind of are reminding me of the LeBron James teams from back in the day, where it's after they had won a championship, or gotten to the finals, you kind of just see them coast through the season, right? Don't look too great. They look like, I think LeBron has been as low as a 4 seed or something when he was with the Cavs, but playoff time comes around and then they kick it in. And that's kind of what the Chiefs have been reminding me of is, they're kind of just, let's get through the regular season. Let's make it through. We probably should have played better here. Yeah, no, we dropped a game, or we got into a game, could have lost that we shouldn't have. But it's, we saw it last year where they shored up in the playoffs. And this year, I think they're so much more dynamic on offense that I think by the time playoff time comes around, the Chiefs that offense is going to start clicking in a way that we haven't seen it this year. I think the DeAndre Hopkins snaps start going up, which we talked about that. I think they're trying to keep that under the 60% to keep him fresh and also keep the draft pick. And so biggest thing, yeah, like I said, against that defense, love to see Mahomes just continue that hot play he had the last few weeks. And then look, we'll see what happens with it, but that DJ Humphries signing, he's going to be starting at left tackle this week. Now, is he the Pro Bowl player he was from a few years ago? No, but that left tackle position for the Chiefs has been probably their biggest weakness outside of second corner since Watson went out with the broken ankle. Like, that is just a spot that has been awful. I think when you PFF grades their 2 left tackles as bottom 10 for snaps, that respectively for how many each have played, which is just abysmal. And so I think that DJ Humphries signing, getting somebody, even if he can just be a league average, it's such an upgrade that, again, that just kind of helps the Chiefs start clicking a little bit better on offense. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that signing goes for them, how he's looking, obviously newer on the team, but I think that's a huge signing for them as well. And so, look, that's going to wrap us up for our recap, or not our recap, our look ahead of this week's games. And so, look, we're going to head into the headlines. This is where we're going to have some NBA here, mostly NBA, but we're going to stick with the NFL kind of and start off with Bill Belichick. And so for all of y'all who haven't heard, Belichick interviewed with the University of North Carolina for their head coaching job. And just kind of weird to see, man, like, it's, obviously a lot of people thought he was going to get back into coaching, but I don't think any of us saw him possibly going into a college job. And to me, there's a couple different ways you can look at it, right? I know I've seen people speculating as far as like he just wants to get back into coaching and doesn't think that he's going to be a possibility for a team this year in the NFL. And it's like, okay, I kind of get that. You see other people talking about, how he's a fit in college. I think Belichick, I mean, obviously he has the cachet of the Super Bowls, things like that, but college is a lot about recruiting. And while, yes, it's nice to go play for a Bill Belichick if you're a high school kid, right, or a transfer, because you're going to get coaching from the same guy who coached Tom Brady and has all these Super Bowls and has a chance to win record. But also, Belichick, with the level of program UNC is, you are arguably fighting for the same people as like a Dion is going to, right? Because obviously you're not going to compete with the SEC teams. Dion at least has a chance to possibly compete with those guys just because he's Dion. Like the amount of personality, the recruiting, everything that he does, I would want to go play for Dion far before I'd want to go play for Belichick. And so to me, it doesn't make sense. Again, what I kind of landed on with it when I first saw it was, oh, he's trying to kind of drum up interest because UNC already said they want to make a hire before December. Well, NFL teams aren't going to hire a head coach until obviously this offseason. So I think this is more of a kind of a feeler out there like, hey, Belichick is interested in coaching. And look, teams want Belichick. And so I think it's more of something like that, trying to just keep the interest as far as these NFL teams saying, okay, so like people do want him. So again, to me, just kind of weird. Even with that thought process, if that is the case, again, because of the timing of everything, it's kind of weird. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me as far as because I don't think Bill Belichick, if he's going to coach, it's going to be to go back to the NFL to try to get Shula's record. For however long he's going to hold that, because obviously you got Andy Reid right behind him. But that's the only way I can see Belichick going to be a coach again is, at least at a high level, is going back to the NFL to go after that record. Now, if he just wants to coach, just loves coaching, I'm like, I think there's a lot more coaching opportunities that would probably fit him better than going to UNC. And so, to me, like I said, it just seems like a way to kind of drum up interest, keep kind of just that his name front of mind on some of these NFL coaches or NFL GMs and NFL owners. So that's my read on that one. But look, we're gonna move from the NFL. We're going to the NBA, man, because we got a couple big things to happen. So one, we're gonna start with Lakers and Hawks. So obviously that game last night, Lakers fall in overtime to a big shot by I believe it was Trae Young who hit that big one to put them up by 2 on just kind of a broken down offensive rebound kind of play where he just gets a wide open shot. Again, things like that. It happens, but if you're the Lakers, it can't happen. But biggest takeaway from this, man, is look, I told y'all, since the last podcast, I was like, watch this next game or the game after, we're gonna see a different LeBron. And lo and behold, granted, the Heat, they lose by 41, but offensively, LeBron gets his rhythm back. Puts up I think he had 28, 7 and 9 or something like that, whatever it was. But shot little under percent, I thought, from 3. 3 was still a little shaky. But look, this Lakers-Hawks game, full on LeBron, 39-point triple-double, 39, 10, and 11 on 56, 55, 83 splits. So, like I said, man, to me, that kind of stretch was more about 5 games in 7 days than it was LeBron getting old. And we even saw it, look, one of the biggest plays in regulation was, I believe it was in regulation, but breakaway for Dyson Daniels that, crucial moment of the game, last 30 seconds, that would have been a big bucket for the Hawks, LeBron chased down block. And look, he had 3 blocks, 2 steals last night on defense. And look, AD also 38, 10, and 8 on 56%. And AD is, as always, a problem in the paint. He had 2 blocks. But this kind of goes back to what, I know everybody is blame LeBron for, the Lakers losing, that's the thing. Doesn't matter if he had 39, 10, 11. He should have done more at 40 years old. But this is what I've been saying about this Lakers team for a long time. If you have, and this goes to the Bucks as well, who last night lost a game to the Celtics where Giannis and Dame had monster nights. If your best 2 players combine for what? 39, 38, that's 77. 77 points, 10 boards, 19 assists, and average 56% shooting between the 2 of them with 5 blocks and 2 or 3 steals. That should be enough to win a game, especially a game against the Hawks, who I know, they're in the in-season tournament cup, the NBA Cup, but the Hawks aren't this great team. And so last night's game is a full indictment on Pelinka. Obviously, JJ Redick, look, I've seen it as an upgrade in the coaching department. He's going to have his speed bumps as a rookie head coach, but last night's a full indictment on just Rob Pelinka. Now, granted, Austin Reeves out. Gabe Vincent, man, actually gave you a solid game, but also in overtime had 2 straight possessions when they're either up or down 1 where he's taking shots, which is weird. And so, but obviously Austin Reeves out. Jared Vanderbilt's still yet to play. So, they're dinged up a little bit. But again, if you can't overcome an Austin Reeves injury with your 2 best players giving you almost 80 points, that's an indictment on your front office against a team that's an average team. And so, again, eventually I get, what? I can't even say eventually because it's been, how long has LeBron been in LA? 5 years, 6 years now? That Pelinka has basically gotten away with terrible GM moves, everything, because you can either pin it on LeBron or, all the Jordan fans are going to blame LeBron because, what better way to make your player's legacy better than trash the guy who's you assume or who you say has no argument stacking up to him, but if that was the case, why are you trashing him? But anyways, Pelinka, man, I need to know where I can get a job where I can never be held accountable for my bad mistakes, and then anything good that happens, I get credit for. Because that's basically what Pelinka's done with the Lakers, man. And so, again, huge indictment on Pelinka. Massive games from LeBron, AD, goes to OT, loss. Yeah, to me, that game is so much more an indictment on Pelinka than it is on either LeBron, AD, or even JJ Redick. And look, we're going to stick in the NBA because another big headline, Nikola Jokic, man, passes Magic Johnson for all-time triple-doubles. I think it moves him into 3rd behind Russ, his teammate now, and the Big O. And so, one, congrats to Jokic, man. Obviously, just when we're talking about an offensive player in general, not even at his size, but just an offensive player in general, one of the best we've ever seen. Doesn't always look pretty, but look, still one of, like I said, just what he does on the offensive end is phenomenal. And with this now, it kind of brings into questions like, okay, where does he rank all time? Me personally, right now, I probably got him at like 13 in that area, probably like that 12 to 15 area. I don't think I have him as low as 15, so it's probably more 12, 13 is where I would do it if I really mapped it out right now. And so I think, look, fair enough. He's got the 1 chip. And look, it's not like he had some crazy team around him with the 1 chip. But while I don't put a ton of weight into championships as far as where you rank all time, it is part of it. Last year, I think, was a big miss for them because, you're up. They were up, 20 in that game against the Timberwolves in Game 7? And you lose that. Who knows what happens against the Mavs? But look, I guarantee you, if I asked a lot of Denver fans, do y'all think you beat the Mavs last year? They say yes. And then look, while we all think the Celtics was this monster team, Denver played them tough in the regular season. And so who knows what happens with that one? And obviously that changes everything. So when you get in these conversations of all-time ranks and you're trying to get into that top 10, area, those things like a 20-point lead in game 7 getting blown in the second round, those things matter. And so now, is it this huge indictment of him? No. Does he still have a lot of time left in the NBA to get another ring or two? Yes. Um, but and I think you give him one more ring, I think it now moves him into that top 10, probably anywhere in between that 6 to 9, 6 to 10 area, because now you're talking about a guy who's got 2 championships. You know, the amount of triple doubles he has is insane. Obviously, one of the best offensive players you've ever seen. And I think like the comparison for him would be like a Hakeem, right? Never, when they won their championships, they were never on these teams with great other like massively great players like, you know, Jordan Pippen, LeBron, Wade, or AD, um, a Shaq and Kobe. There was never like that. They neither of them have ever had that type of player next to him when they were winning championships. But they had just the perfect role players around them for them, and they were exceptional at what they did. Hakeem, it was, obviously great on the post and one of the best defenders we've ever seen, possibly the best defender at his position we've ever seen. And Jokic is just this unstoppable offensive force, points, rebounds, assists in a league that just can't handle him. And so I think that becomes a real debate as far as okay, Hakeem or Jokic, kind of where do you put them all time? Are they kind of next to each other? And so I think, again, Jokic obviously still has a long way to go. You start getting more championships, 3, 4. Now the question is, okay, where do you put him with Steph? And so, again, I think another championship just gets him into this really kind of rarefied air of top 10 for sure, hands down. I don't think there's an argument against it. And so that brings me to the next point is like, is Denver doing him a disservice? You know, because look, he's never had another great player around him. Jamal Murray, he just got signed. He's got the most guaranteed money, and he has not looked great this year. Now, granted, we're always used to seeing Jamal coming up big in the playoffs. Last year hits those game winners. But what kind of gets lost in translation last year is he wasn't great during that playoff run. And can Denver win without Jamal Murray being great? And when I say win, I mean a championship, because I don't think so. Michael Porter Jr., great scorer. Aaron Gordon, great piece. But with the pieces they have, if Jamal Murray isn't that Jamal Murray we saw in their championship run, where, or we saw it like in the bubble where he's just this, again, looks like a top caliber guard in the league in the playoffs, then I don't think they win another one. And then it becomes kind of, look, Denver's a smaller market. And we're seeing it with Giannis right now. They get Dame, but we've seen Giannis go from, oh, I am going to stay in Milwaukee to, look, if y'all can't get a team around me, I might have to leave. And so in another small market in Denver, if they can't get those pieces, does Jokic possibly start needing to kind of look at hey, you guys either need to get me pieces or I might have to leave. And who knows? Again, Jokic is just this weird kind of, I don't even really know if he loves being an NBA basketball player. And I don't know if I'm sure he loves winning, because if you're in the NBA and, you're in that kind of class that he's in, none of them like losing. They all want to win championships. But how much he wants to win it, would he be willing to like kind of put pressure on that front office to help him win more championships? I don't know, because like I said, his personality is just kind of different in that way. But we also thought Giannis's was, and we've seen Giannis do that. So, anyways, again, I think it might be time here in the next few years, especially look, we got to see how Jamal Murray ages, but that contract could be a tough contract here over the next few years if Jamal Murray is kind of on that decline. So that'll do it for the NBA. That'll do it for our headlines. We're going to move into, like we do every week, top 5, then the watch of the week, and then we'll wrap up here, man. But top 5, look, not too much change from last week. We got Chiefs number 1. Again, man, when I look at the top 5, it's obviously what you've done this year, but also projection out, what you've done before. I've seen the Chiefs win in every possible way. I trust their quarterback, their head coach, their, weapons in, congruence with their quarterback and head coach. So I keep them 1. Number 2, Eagles, man, with Saquon running the way he's doing, Jalen Hurts is playing mistake-free football because we've been leaning heavy into the run. That defense has become great, number 1 defense in the league, I would say. So they're at 2. Big question with head coach still. So that's one of the reasons why, obviously, you swap out head coaches. I can't see the Eagles not being 1, but that's still kind of going to be the concern there. Number 3, Lions. Look, strong case for Lions to be at 1 if you just look at this year. But again, it's with those injuries mounting up. My questions about the head coach. It's hard for me to see them winning the conference, which you would have to do to be in the top 2 because one of them is in the NFC. And so 4, Bills. Look, and then we're going to get to see this matchup next week. And so obviously we'll have a lot of switching in the top 5 as long as the Bills don't lose to the Rams this week. But that Lions-Bills game is going to be huge as far as the top 5. And then lastly, man, the Vikings. Again, man, chance to go beat the Lions in the division. I think the top 4 is pretty solidified. I think 5 is where you could see a lot of different teams kind of in or out of there. Steelers have a great case as far as in the top 5. But again, my questions are with the quarterback consistently moving forward through the playoffs. And as much as I don't trust Sam Darnold, I trust Russell Wilson less. So that's the top 5, man. And then watch of the week. Look, this is going to be a good one because it might not be. No, you know what? It's going to be exciting. Let me rephrase this. It's going to be exciting regardless of what happens. It's Browns Steelers. And so now, look, I just got done saying I don't really trust the Steelers QB. But the reason why this is going to be so exciting is the Browns have had one of the best offenses if Jameis has come on. And look, Jameis is going to throw 500 yards, whether it's to his team or to the other team. Probably a little bit of probably a good mix of both. I think last week in that game that they had against Denver, he broke a record for most total yards thrown between his team and the other team. It was like over like 600 or something like that. And so, look, one thing James is going to do, he's going to throw that. He's going to sling the rock all over the place, and it's going to land in someone's arms. It's just, you never know who. I could see a pick 6. I could see him throwing 4 touchdowns. But regardless, it is going to be a great watch. He's going to give you – look, I can't wait for his pregame speech because he's giving you the best quotes right now. Like, Jameis is just must watch. So he's really the reason why this is in the watch of the week. I think it's just going to be fun and exciting to watch them play. And so I'm definitely going to be watching it. Like I said, I'm going to probably try to tune in early to get the pregame interview with him. I can't wait for his postgame interview. And so that's going to be the watch of the week. But look, appreciate y'all as always, man. Let's be real, episode 19. Make sure y'all go check it out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever y'all get your podcasts or consume your podcasts or whatever you watch, listen to. Check us out, man. Like, subscribe. And yeah, we'll be back here next week and appreciate y'all.